Replacement windows. Not in your budget this year? Well, what if you could save 20%? Renewal by Andersen, full-service replacement window division of Andersen, are putting windows back in your budget with this exclusive podcast-only offer. You know how much I love this and what a difference it makes. You owe it to yourself, people. You save 20% on windows, 20% on patio doors, an additional $20 on every window. Don't settle for low-end vinyl windows. Renewal by Andersen's composite Fibrex window material is 2 times stronger than vinyl, and you can save 20% on windows and patio doors, plus an additional $20 off each and every window with 0 down, 0 payments, and 0 interest for a year. The air conditioning works better. It's so much quieter. The heater's better. Everything is better. Dust is down. So for a free renewal by Andersen Windows Diagnosis, call 1-800-406-8700. Again, 1-800-406-8700. 1-800-406-8700. Dawson.
Offer not available in all areas. Restrictions and conditions apply. Call for license information.
TCL is a proud sponsor of the 1500 ESPN studios. TCL, America's fastest growing TV brand. Minnesota Vikings, the NFL, football. Yeah, football. Welcome to Purple Podcast.
Welcome to another episode of the Purple Podcast. Matthew Coller here, along with former NFL quarterback Sage Rosenfels. Sage, how are you?
I'm doing great. Looking forward to the show again today.
All right, so let's start out by taking a quick look at what you saw on tape, and I as well. I went through the tape yesterday, and the first thing that stuck out to me, Sage, was naturally how they created big plays in the run game. And you know, they were missing David Morgan for a game, and you wouldn't think a whole lot of that because it's the number 2 tight end. But in today's game, I feel like having a number 2 tight end that can really stick a linebacker in a hole or who can catch it when you throw it at him, it's a pretty darn valuable thing to have, and the Vikings have it in David Morgan.
Yeah, and there was a couple blocks in that game. One for the, I believe it was the first touchdown of the game to Latavius Murray. Mm-hmm. He was right at the point of attack there, and the ball, I believe, went right behind him, and there was a nice hole there. David Morgan reminds me a lot of Joel Jurison. He was a teammate of mine with the Texans. He ended up sort of finishing his career with the Broncos, Colorado State kid. And Joel was sort of the master of attention to detail, just the precision of the footwork and the exact sort of position of where you're supposed to be. And Morgan does a lot of those same things. You know, he's just a high quality, number 2 guy. I actually think he does a pretty good job when he's out running routes. And they use him more of a blocker, but I've always thought he's a pretty good route runner and has pretty good hands as well. So he does a really nice job of just knowing exactly what the defense is going to be doing and where the defense is going to be, and then sort of adjusting his footwork and his block angles accordingly. And he was, very much responsible, part of the entire offensive line, of course, but you can see the difference in some of those backside cutoff blocks or those blocks at the point of attack when David Morgan's in there.
He's also the type of guy that'll make like 12 catches a year, but all of them ended up being in big spots or something like that, or when Kirk Cousins needed an outlet on the run and he was able to find him. So I think it's one of the things that John DeFilippo has done pretty well, where, you see CJ Ham in there for 12 or 13 plays a game. You see Morgan in there for 20 plays a game. He's constantly mixing the personnel, and even though we focus so much on just the 2 guys, on Thielen and Diggs, that he's utilizing every part of this offense. And I noticed too, Sage, that this year he's been using Kyle Rudolph a lot to get matched up with defensive backs in blocking situations. That we've criticized Rudolph in the past for his lack of ability to block, but if he's going one-on-one with a defensive end, it's pretty tough. It seems like using him lining up as a wide receiver and getting him on some of those screens or even on...
Lucky's 13 Pubs has you covered for the best game day experience this football season. Tons of TVs, legendary appetizers, amazing fresh half-pound burgers, handcrafted sandwiches, and a wide variety of other pub favorites. The drink menu is awesome, too. Huge selection of tap beer, handcrafted cocktails, and the best Bloody Marys in town. Seriously, these Bloodies are awesome. Try the Bacon Bloody, the Jalapeno Bloody, the Mother Mary, or just get a flight and try them all. Plus, Lucky's 13 celebrates Sunday Fun Day. Happy hour all day long on Sunday, every Sunday. Events and prize giveaways during games, too. Lucky's 13 has locations in Bloomington, Burnsville, Mendota, Plymouth, and Roseville. Having people over for the game? Call ahead to Lucky's and order some of those legendary apps, and they'll be ready to bring home when you get there. It's football time at Lucky's 13 Pubs. Find them online at luckys13pub.com. luckys13pub.com. It's the most wonderful time of the year, football time. And Lucky's 13 Pubs has you covered for the best game day experience. luckys13pub.com.
Yeah, that's exactly right. They had trips to the right-hand side and he had tight end to his left-hand side. He's, a lot of times in those situations, in particular on third downs, teams will either play coverage in which they'll be conservative. They'll just rush 4 or even rush 3 and really just try to keep the ball in the end zone, make the team check it down or throw it away. Or they'll come after you and say either you're going to score a touchdown or we're going to blitz you and maybe even try to get you out of field goal range or something like that, create a turnover, on third downs. And on that play, the Vikings came after him with the cover 0 look. Rosen saw the look, made the correct check. He actually had Larry Fitzgerald for a touchdown on that play and threw I think a too low of a ball. That's one of those you can put air on it. And the really neat thing about when you get cover 0 is that you can sort of fade back if you feel a lot of times there's one more coming. There might be 8 coming, but you're only protecting with 7. So at some point, the furthest guy is going to hit you. Mm-hmm. But if you buy a little time, maybe fade back a little bit, the nice thing is there's no safety back. There's no free safety. You just got to let Larry Fitzgerald beat his guy. You can throw it sort of out in front of him with some air on it and let him run underneath it. And then he sort of chose to stay in the pocket, which is fine. The pocket actually, he had enough time, but he threw a flat ball and Anthony Barr knocked it down, and that was a 4-point swing.
So let me go back to something you were talking about with Cousins and the interception. So I'm watching Aaron Rodgers the other night, and I know that there's really not a comparison between one of the top 10 quarterbacks ever versus Cousins, who's just a good NFL quarterback. But one thing I notice with Rodgers is that when something isn't there, he will just wing the ball out of bounds. And he seems to do that pretty often. I have not seen Kirk do that very much, and I was wondering on that play, so your protection breaks down, somebody misses a block, and there's a guy in your face. That seems like a situation where just chuck it out of bounds and live to play another day. And I don't feel like Case Keenum did that very often last year and played with fire quite a bit, and it eventually burned him against the Saints and the Eagles. And with Cousins, I don't know. Is that something that you sort of think through or that you work on of when to just chuck the ball out of bounds, or is it something that just goes quarterback to quarterback?
Well, you're not going to sit there and practice and do some sort of drill where the pocket breaks down and just whip the ball out of bounds. You don't have enough time to, fair enough. You'd rather be throwing to wide receivers than trying to complete passes, you know what I mean? But, it's something that you obviously talk about, throwing the ball away, living for another day. That's a really big, phrase you hear amongst quarterbacks, in particular when you're in the red zone, but, on first down, second down, hey, live for another day here. You don't have to make a play. It said in particular on first down or even on third down. I had a college coach, Steve Loney. Viking fans may remember him. He was an offensive coordinator, offensive line coach up there for a few years in the early 2000s. He used to talk about if we would go into a game and end every possession with some sort of kick, a punt, an extra point, a field goal, we would win that football game. He's basically saying, we don't turn the ball over and we just sort of do our thing. We don't have to play perfect football, but you can, punting's okay. Punting's okay in the NFL a lot of times. And, that would be something that, I think Kirk, he's a perfectionist and he really wants to, have an offense and be a quarterback that, makes a lot of positive things happen. And sometimes the most positive thing you can do is stay away from the negative. And that's those interceptions or untimely turnovers.
Now, the balls that got knocked down, I got an email about that, and you could probably answer the question. Is this something that you think is a Kirk Cousins issue, or is it just that's what happened on that day, and it's kind of random. There was a stat that he's like 9th or something for balls knocked down, but I mean, he throws the ball all the time. So I was thinking that it's just kind of, that's how it worked out that day, and it's random. But he also doesn't really shuffle himself in the pocket. He kind of anchors down in one spot and tends to stay there.
Well, I don't think he's anything, particularly bad, at that, or that happens to him. It might happen to him a little more often than other quarterback. David Carr, when I played with David, he had balls knocked down all the time, and people always attributed to the fact that he had a sort of lower throwing motion, sort of threw off of his shoulder. But it wasn't that. It's because he was looking at the receivers for too long, and so the linemen have a chance then to know where the quarterback's eyes are, and you stick your arm up, and you knock balls down. So that was his issue. Blake Bortles gets a ton of balls knocked down. Every time I watch a Blake Bortles game, it seems like 3 or 4 every game. Where, I think this was a little bit of an anomaly this week. I mean, he does seem to have one ball knocked down every week. That does happen. There's 4 or 5 guys there with 2 arms rushing with big mitts. Sometimes you're not really looking for I remember, people like Doug Flutie would talk about, he would look for passing lanes. I never really did that so much. I was tall enough where you could sort of look over, and I wasn't trying to move myself in the pocket to find an actual lane to throw to. I was trying to figure out the coverage and see where my guys were and if they were actually open. So, I think one thing with Kurt is he doesn't change his arm angle very often. Some people look at it as a negative, like, somebody threw it sidearm a little bit. I always looked at it as a positive. I think it's okay to certain throws, you can't change your feet, and it's okay to sidearm it a little bit or on the screen or something. Mm-hmm. He is so fundamentally sound, that he sort of has that same motion, every single time and doesn't really change it up. And maybe that would be something that he could sort of add to his repertoire, as his career develops.
Doug Flutie might be our journeyman quarterback of the week when they play New England. That might be a good one.
I've got a great story about that. It has to do with a drop kick extra point.
Yes, I remember that.
I was there for that.
That's awesome. Yeah. Man, you're just kind of like there for all these moments. So, by the way, Doug Flutie, I remember the conversation so much about balls getting batted down because he was short. And yet, the guy was so much of a gamer that he went to the playoffs with them twice, and then the owner decides to sit Flutie down to play Rob Johnson. I mean, this is like my childhood. We had Flutie Flakes, Sage. My family had Flutie Flakes.
Flutie was a straight-up baller. Like, he was that. He was like Johnny Manziel without the drugs. He was just a straight baller. Doug Flutie I don't think he's ever had a sip of alcohol in his life.
Really? Wow. Actually,
yeah. He's just a gym rat. Like, he would play basketball during the week, after football practice or on like Monday nights or something, or Tuesdays. I mean, the guy was just, he just loved sports and loved to compete. And maybe it's like just, Napoleon complex, times 10 or something, but he loves to try to overcome his height disadvantage. And he probably looks at it as an advantage. And sometimes it might be the way he can move and run around. You usually can't do that when you're 6'4" or 6'5".
I remember a play in one of his first starts where they were at the goal line trying to win a game, I believe against Jacksonville, and somebody got the call wrong, and then he just pulled it down and ran it in for the game-winning touchdown himself. Like, going off script was his thing, and it was so fun to watch. That was like some of the best. I've gone back and actually watched the season back, like the games that are on YouTube, because he was so much fun to watch. Why don't you just tell the dropkick story, because we're talking about it.
Really?
Just go ahead. We'll find another Patriots quarterback.
Okay. Well, we are playing, I believe 2005. I am the number 2 quarterback in Miami. Nick Saban is our head coach. Jason Garrett's my quarterback's coach. Scott Linehan, the offensive coordinator. We're playing up in New England, last game of the year. We have nothing. We're out of the playoffs. The best we can. We're 8-7. We actually had won 6 in a row, going into that game. And we were 8-7, but we knew we were already out of the playoffs. The Patriots were, whatever they were, 14-1 or whatever it was. And, we're up, late in that ball game. They end up scoring. And, they bring Flutie out onto the field, and, we didn't call a timeout or anything. They brought Flutie on the field, and I thought to myself, like, it's like, what are they doing? Tom Brady's not even in the game, and he's like I believe he was like an empty formation basically, and he was about 7 yards deep. They snapped it to him, and he dropped it on the ground and kicked it, made the extra point. And I personally thought it was like the coolest thing. I was like, oh, that is amazing. For some reason, I'd sort of forgotten that Flutie was, Boston College, and we're back in New England, and how special that might have been. I knew he was retiring at the end of the season, and I thought like that was such a cool moment. And I think I was even like sort of smiling about it. And then I like heard all the coaches just screaming at the other, like they thought it was just sort of a slap in the face, that Belichick would do something like that to us. And I believe we ended up winning the game. Gus Frerotte was the starting quarterback. We won 7 in a row at the end of that season. Yeah, another backup,
Man.
but and ended up winning that game, I believe. I was there for the sort of famous Doug Flutie drop kick, and I had a much different reaction than probably every other person on my sideline. I thought it was awesome.
So the drop click, the rule on it is that it just has to like touch the ground. So you just drop it and it bounces straight back up, and you kick it as it's sort of bouncing.
Yeah, well, there's no rule that says you have to have a holder, right?
Oh, right.
The rule is the ball has to hit the ground before it's kicked, I believe. So that's why you have a holder who puts it on the ground. But yeah, I drop kicks are obviously illegal. I don't know what the exact wording is. But yeah, you obviously don't have to have a holder. You can't just punt it through. You got to hit the ground. Right. And so you almost kick it simultaneously. Obviously it's sort of like a soccer ball. You kick the football, a tenth of a second after the ball hits the ground. So I used to watch Flutie, Flutie, Drew Brees. There was this sort of group of quarterbacks, around the league that before the games, 2.5 hours, 2 hours before the games, you play these different sort of quarterback games. You see the Saints do it all the time in training camp. Brees has all of these quarterback contests. Sometimes Sean Payton gets in them. But they have all these throwing contests, and there's the crossbar throw, there's the field goal post bar throw. There's this little punting game where you try to coffin corner somebody in sort of a little area and try to, stall the ball right in the corner and who can get closest to the goal line. Flutie just loved to compete and play games and do all sorts of things. And obviously, I had seen him many times kick, 40-yard field goals by drop kicking them in those pregame sessions. And I'm sitting there thinking, if I try this, I'm going to pull, a quad muscle or something like that, and that'd be the end of my day. So I wasn't even trying it. But yeah, he was, just sort of he was a gym rat, and it's very unsurprising that he would sort of master something like that.
A little bit of that here. I saw number 4 quarterback Peter Pujols from 60 yards away hit the crossbar, and nobody else could do it. Like the other Vikings quarterbacks tried, they all missed, and the number 4 guy from, I forget, even New Mexico State or something, he got to win that day, and then that was pretty much it for Peter Pujols. That was his lone.
The Vikings quarterbacks are doing that in pregame also. Is that you're saying, or you saw that at practice?
They did do it last year with Teddy and Case, but this was in a training camp practice where they were all coming off the field and they were trying to hit the crossbar, and everybody else missed, but the number 4 guy got it. So good for him.
Yeah, well, there you go. The real way to play the game is you actually start on the goal line and you work your way back.
Oh, okay.
Then you get like you get 2 attempts or whatever. So that's the actual game. It's sort of like horse or something like that. But you're really just moving back. Once everyone hits it, then you move back to the 5 or the 10 and slowly work your way back. And I've ended that game on the other side of the 50. It's a very fun quarterback game to play. And if nobody hits, you keep going, right? And then there's the game of 2 hit, all hit. That's the whole thing. Also, if you have like 4 quarterbacks in it, and if 2 guys hit it, everyone stays in, right? So there's a lot of ways to play that game. It's part of the quarterback fraternity's game kit that you get when you get drafted to the NFL.
I'm glad that there are some elements of the NFL that are like what my brother and I used to do on Sunday mornings in the backyard. So that's pretty fun. Let me ask you about another guy, Sam Darnold, who has a bit of gamerness to him too. When he was at USC, I made an effort to watch as many games as I could, and he had a knack of making the most ridiculous throw you've ever seen and then the worst throw you've ever seen. And that has been kind of his Jets career so far, where he's dropping bombs at times, and then, his first throw of his career is across his body, across the field for a pick six.
Well, he's being asked to do a lot. They're not a great football team, and whether are they 3-3? I feel like they're 3-3, right around 500. But they just don't have very many weapons on offense. I mean, you look at what a guy like Pat Mahomes has, or shoot, even what Cousins or Mitchell Trubisky has in Chicago now. They've got a lot of weapons in Chicago. They just don't have those types of guys with the Jets. They may have the worst weapons in the NFL. So he's doing a nice job. He's probably trying to do a little bit too much, but I like the fact that Jeremy Bates, their offensive coordinator, who I think is a fantastic coach, and someday I think soon will be a head coach. He does a really nice job of trying to put him in position and not trying to sort of put the shackles on him and cause him to try to be like a robot. He lets him try to be a playmaker. He is that at heart. He is also a very good, pocket passer. He's pretty dang accurate, and he usually makes good decisions. But yeah, he's a young guy. He's 21 years old, I think, or something. So the fact that he's even playing halfway well, you got to find it really exciting if you're a Jets fan.
And you saw that Josh McCown has a daughter the same age as Sam Darnold?
I did see that. Yeah, I did.
That's great.
I did see. I think the McCowns both have like 5 kids or something like that. They like to have those babies. But yeah, he started young. McCown's way. He's 39. He's probably almost 40.
Yeah.
So he must have started pretty young to have a 21-year-old daughter.
Yeah. No, I think he did. Like at the end of high school. But we don't judge on this podcast. So, with this Jets game, I mean, they are 3-3, so it's not like this is a team that you say is like Arizona that's just falling apart and they're talking about trading everyone, everything like that. But this still strikes me, Sage, big picture, as a game that if you're the Vikings and you want to be a Super Bowl contender, that it is a take care of business game where you go to New York, you win, and then it's the real deal. Then it's on. You're playing New Orleans, but this team has a good enough defense, it looks like, to not overlook, but still I feel like if you're a Vikings fan, after what they did to Arizona, what they did on the road to Philadelphia, this is one that you should feel like your team can just go in and win.
Yeah, the Vikings, they should win this football game, but again, this is the NFL. They got they got destroyed by the Buffalo Bills not too long ago, so they're going to have to play their A game, and if they don't, the Jets are one of those teams. I feel like if you let them hang around, they have confidence, and they've beaten some good teams this year. But if you let them hang around, they're one of those young football teams that they'll believe they can win this football game. So it's a game that if the Vikings want to be a playoff bound team, this is when you have to chalk up, because there's some definitely tougher ones down the road. Chicago. Listen, I watch Chicago every single week now. I do this radio show in Chicago, and we talk about Mitchell Trubisky. That's a good football team, and they got a good defense, and they have a lot of weapons on offense. And obviously, we got to see the Packers again, and shoot, you never know with the Lions. And so the Vikings. This is when the Vikings have to win, and they should win this weekend.
I don't think I ever asked you how you had the quarterbacks ranked who came out in the first round, like during the draft process. I mean, did you watch enough of them to sort of have your order in your mind, who you thought was the best one, who you thought was in the middle, who you thought was the worst one?
I didn't have them exactly ranked. I looked at them as, what are the positives, what are the negatives, what are the concerns? There was no like perfect, Andrew Luck. This guy's big, strong. He can move. He's got his accurate arm, and he fits all these, he checks all the boxes type of guy. Everyone had their different weaknesses. Baker Mayfield scared you because he's like, 6'1", mm-hmm. He's shorter. Obviously his sort of immaturity in college. Darnold concerned you because he turned the ball over too much in college. And he was so young. I mean, he was 20 years old. And Josh Allen has the biggest upside, the highest ceiling. But there's obviously, I never liked quarterbacks that aren't accurate, mm-hmm. right? Lamar Jackson, unbelievable athlete, but, definitely not a great passer, in college. The college game, the windows are a lot bigger, and he wasn't super accurate. But when you look back, and after the whole draft happened, you look at the two things I like to talk about, and that's decision making and accuracy. And Baker Mayfield was the best decision maker, at least on the field, amongst these rookie quarterbacks. And accuracy wise, he's actually the most accurate as well when you broke it down with all the Pro Football Focus and all that stuff. He was the most accurate. So I probably liked him the most. I thought Darnold was going to be the first pick. I just really didn't think that Baker, and I think Baker's going to be a really good quarterback. He is really fun to watch. He's a guy, he's got that Flutie sort of magic in him a little bit with a stronger arm.
Yep.
And he's a really accurate thrower. So he sort of has that, that savvy, that gamesmanship that I love, for a quarterback. And, the concern was his immaturity, and you give a guy 30, 35, $40 million guaranteed and say, you're going to be the most famous person in town, which he probably is after LeBron's gone now. That usually doesn't help people become more mature.
I liked Rosen the most, but I think he got dropped into the worst situation. Just the weapons, the offensive line is a complete abomination. He's got to play right away. I didn't think he would have to play right away, but then as things didn't work out for Sam, I understand why they turned it over to him. But you saw last week there's glimpses of excellence with him, but very few opportunities to sit back there and actually throw the ball with it, and no running game whatsoever to help him out. And Larry Fitzgerald is on the other side, and it does not have a whole lot of help there.
Yeah, that was probably the worst situation. I mean, the Buffalo Bills were in the playoffs last year, so you can't say that was a terrible situation for Josh Allen. The Cleveland situation is they won one ball game or something in a couple of years, and so they had been terrible. So you can't say that was a great situation either, though they made a ton of moves in the offseason now, which it was not just with draft picks, but with trades and signing, big time free agents like Jarvis Landry. So that was a situation that drastically improved in the 6 or 7 months since 2017 ended. But yeah, I liked Rosen coming out, but Rosen was the guy who probably had the shortest ceiling of all those quarterbacks, but was sort of like maybe the most ready to come in, run an NFL offense, and sort of execute. As I said, I sort of see him as a Kirk Cousins type. Isn't going to blow you away with magical plays, but has a really nice arm, and over time can be a quarterback who does a really nice job of executing. But I never saw the that really high ceiling of, the Aaron Rodgers,
right.
Or whatever, the guy that's going to be a Hall of Famer. I didn't see Josh Rosen as a Hall of Famer waiting to happen, but the other guys were guys that probably had that higher ceiling, but more negatives on that checklist.
Okay, let's wrap up with our journeyman quarterback of the week.
Lucky's 13 Pubs has you covered for the best game day experience this football season. Tons of TVs, legendary appetizers, amazing fresh half-pound burgers, handcrafted sandwiches, and a wide variety of other pub favorites. The drink menu is awesome, too. Huge selection of tap beer, handcrafted cocktails, and the best Bloody Marys in town. Seriously, these Bloodies are awesome. Try the Bacon Bloody, the Jalapeno Bloody, the Mother Mary, or just get a flight and try them all. Plus, Lucky's 13 celebrates Sunday Fun Day. Happy hour all day long on Sunday, every Sunday. Events and prize giveaways during games, too. Lucky's 13 has locations in Bloomington, Burnsville, Mendota, Plymouth, and Roseville. Having people over for the game? Call ahead to Lucky's and order some of those legendary apps, and they'll be ready to bring home when you get there. It's football time at Lucky's 13 Pubs. Find them online at luckys13pub.com. luckys13pub.com. It's the most wonderful time of the year, football time. And Lucky's 13 Pubs has you covered for the best game day experience. luckys13pub.com.
It's time for Matthew and Sage to honor one of the NFL's great journeyman quarterbacks.
Ray Lucas is our journeyman quarterback of the week. One of my all-time favorite players to sign on Madden. Put him in. He was fast. He had a strong arm on Madden, and you could always make crazy plays with him. In real life, Sage, he had a year where he went 6-3 as a starter, and I've got some Wikipedia gems, as always, from our journeyman. Let me give them to you. Ray Lucas was born out of wedlock, his Wikipedia reads, while his father Tom was serving in Vietnam. His mother became pregnant by another man. Later, Tom married Ray's mother and raised him as his own. So, a little TMI there, I guess, from Wiki.
Yeah, seriously.
I feel like I want to apologize to Ray for his Wiki saying that.
My God. You like to think you can go back in and do some editing or something. I mean, maybe that's that's a part of the story, I guess. That's the way it is.
The other one, Ray Lucas holds the distinction of the worst single-game quarterback performance by any Dolphin. So that's not you. On October 20th, 2002, in a game against the Buffalo Bills, he was responsible for 6 turnovers, 4 interceptions, 2 field goals. He completed only 13 passes to Dolphins receivers. And the player that caught the most passes from Ray Lucas that day was Nate Clements, a Buffalo cornerback.
Yes, that made Nate a crap load of money. I think he ended up signing like
San Francisco.
Yeah, I feel like it was like an $80 million contract, which was absolutely, and then maybe it was like a 10-year contract or something, but it was sort of unheard of back in those days.
And he wasn't the best corner on the Bills. It was Antoine Winfield was the best corner on the Bills.
That's right. That's how that defense was good. I was the backup in that game. Jay Fiedler started our season. This was my only year with Ray Lucas. I was, rookie year in Washington, traded the next year to Miami, and I was the number 3 guy behind Fiedler and Ray Lucas. And Ray came in and guys, and like he was maybe the most likable guy on the team. Everyone loved him. Defensive guys loved him. He was sort of a hothead. Definitely had the strut and the confidence, and was sort of an old school guy. You know, he was a Parcells guy early in his career with New England and the Jets. So he sort of had that. You know, not the, he wasn't a guy that did things, in a pretty way as a quarterback. He loved to run. He was not a guy that was going to slide. He was very tough, play through injuries. But yeah, his first start after Jay got hurt, Ray comes in and it was just, and the thing is he started off, I think on the first drive, it was like boom, 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 right down the field, had like 3 great throws, touchdown. Here we go. Ray's playing great. He's probably thinking he's going to be the starting quarterback for the rest of the year. And then the whole thing just fell apart. It was just one interception after another. Yeah. I think Nate Clements may have had 3 interceptions that day or something like that. Maybe even he had all 4. I'm not even sure. But yeah, that was, I believe looking back, I may have gotten in at the end of that game since we're getting blown out so much, but I can't remember.
Ray Lucas, as all journeymen do, has a couple of great games, just absolutely fantastic games. 31 for 48, 284 yards, 4 touchdowns against the New York Giants in a loss that year, 1999. And then he had another game where he threw 3 touchdowns and had 115 quarterback rating in a win over your former Dolphins. So he had his day.
He had his day, and another Ray Lucas story. He was telling the story when he was with the Patriots. He was their 3rd-string guy. And he, because of that, he was a special teamer. Actually, Parcells loved him as a special teams guy, not just a quarterback. So he actually was on special teams. And in that game, there is a kickoff. He was on the kickoff team. And, I'm trying to think of the guy returner for a touchdown for the Packers. Desmond Howard. Desmond Howard, yeah. So he kicks off, he runs down, turns around, runs all the way back, chases Desmond Howard. He does it straight into the end zone. And he said that, somebody asked him, like, what did Parcells say after that play? And he said, I did not even walk off the field. I went right back to where we're going to be on kickoff return, because he was on kickoff return, team too. So he was like, I had no wanting to go to the sidelines. I just stayed on the field and went right to my kickoff return spot. I was not going to go over there, and hear Parcells, yell at everybody for allowing a kickoff return for a touchdown in the Super Bowl.
Man, it's so random. And before you told me that, I did not know that he was on special teams before becoming a quarterback. How about that?
See, those backups, you got to have some savvy to stick around for a while. You can't just, if you're just a quarterback, you're not going to make it at all. So you got to add other value. You got to be a holder sometimes, whatever the team needs.
So I found the box score. I do not see you throwing any passes in this game from when Lucas threw 4 interceptions. So you may have gotten in but not thrown any passes. And you were correct in your memory that Nate Clements had 3 interceptions, including a pick 6 in that game in which Ray Lucas had a 26 quarterback rating. So
Ray Lucas is the 2nd player I ever played with from Rutgers University. My first was Marco Battaglia, who was Ray Lucas's tight end, who is a 2nd-round pick, played in the league for a long time, played for the Bengals for most of his career. Marco Battaglia was a good friend of mine back in the day. So, yeah, Rutgers University which might be the worst Division I college football team out there. They are absolutely atrocious.
That's what I was going to say, that, they didn't send a whole lot of guys into the NFL. I forgot. Ricky Williams, man. You got to play with Ricky Williams, huh?
I did for, you could sort of say 4 years, but I guess it was really 3 years or something. So 2 years, and he took that break year off in which our team fell apart.
That's right.
And then he came back for that Nick Saban year in 2005. Yeah, so there's I got a few Ricky stories out there too. Most of them I'll probably keep to myself.
All right, we'll get some out of you at some point, maybe when the Vikings play the Dolphins. But Sage, I've kept you for a long time, but a lot of awesome stuff as always. And so thank you for your time, and thank you all for listening to the Purple Podcast.
It's maybe the night that my dreams might let me know all the stars are closer, all the stars are closer.
Tell me what you gonna do to me. Confrontation ain't nothing new to me. You could bring a bullet, bring a sword, bring a morgue, but you can't bring the truth to me.
Alexa, play Kendrick Lamar and SZA.
Okay. Maybe the night that my dreams might let me know all the stars are closer.
With Amazon Music, a voice is all you need. Get tens of millions of songs. Download the Amazon Music app today.
Khashoggi investigation. I'm Ed Donahue with an AP News Minute. Turkey is waiting for final permission from Saudi Arabia to search the home of the Saudi consul in Istanbul. It's part of the investigation into the disappearance of Saudi journalist Jamal Khashoggi. A source tells the AP investigators found more evidence indicating Khashoggi was killed there. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo is in Turkey. He had been in Saudi Arabia meeting leaders there.
Told me they were going to conduct a thorough, complete, transparent investigation. They made a commitment to hold anyone connected to any wrongdoing that may be found accountable for that.
In an interview with the AP, Washington Bureau Chief Julie Pace reports President Trump is defending the Saudis.
And the president really drew a comparison between the pressure that's been put on Saudi Arabia and what happened with his nominee for the Supreme Court, Brett Kavanaugh, saying that this was another rush to judgment.
Turkish officials say Saudi agents killed and dismembered Khashoggi. I'm Ed Donahue.